Formation of German. As we have seen, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle-class Germans who in 1848 tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation into a nation-state governed by an elected parliament. But this liberal initiative to nation building was, however, repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military. After that, they got supported by the large landowners who were called Junkers of Prussia. From then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement of national unification. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, was the architect of this process carried out with the help of the Prussian army and bureaucracy. There were 3 wars over 7 years with Austria, Denmark and France. At last, it ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification. In January 1871, the Prussian king William I was proclaimed German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. The new state placed a strong emphasis on modernizing the currency, banking, legal and judicial system in Germany. Prussian measures and practices often became a model for the rest of Germany. Like Germany, Italy too had a long history of political fragmentation. Italians were scattered over several dynastic states as well as multinational Habsburg Empire. Italy was divided into 7 states, of which only one, Sardinia, Piedmont, was ruled by an Italian princely house. The north was under Austrian Habsburgs, the center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern region were under the domination of the Bourbon kings of Spain. Italian language had not acquired one common form and still had many regional and local variations. During this time, 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini had sought to put together a coherent program for a unitary Italian republic. He had also formed a secret society called Young Italy for the dissemination of his goals, but he failed of revolutionary uprisings both in 1831 and 1848. After that, Chief Minister Cavour, who led the movement to unify the regions of Italy, was neither a revolutionary nor a democratic. Like many other wealthy and educated members of the Italian elite, he spoke French much better than he did Italian. Through a tactful diplomatic alliance with France, engineered by Cavour, Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating the Austrian forces in 1859. Apart from regular troops, a large number of armed volunteers under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi joined the fray. In 1860s, they marched into South Italy and the kingdoms of two Sicilies and succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed King of United Italy. Formation of Britain. In Britain, the formation of the nation-state was not the result of a sudden upheaval or revolution. It was the result of a long drawn-out process. There was no British nation prior to the 18th century. The primary identities of the people who inhabited the British Isles were ethnic ones such as English, Welsh, Scot and Irish. All of these ethnic groups had their own cultural and political traditions. But as the English nation steadily grew in wealth, importance and power, it was able to extend its influence over the other nations of the island. The English Parliament, which had seized power from monarchy in 1688, then England became the nation state. The Act of Union 1707 between England and Scotland that resulted in the formation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. That means, in effect, that England was able to impose its influence on Scotland. The British Parliament was henceforth dominated by its English members. The growth of a British identity meant that Scotland's distinctive culture and political institutions were systematically suppressed. They were under control of Britain. Like Britain, Ireland also had an interesting story. Ireland suffered a similar fate. It was a country deeply divided between Catholics and Protestants. The English helped the Protestants of Ireland to establish their dominance over a largely Catholic country. Catholic revolts against British dominance were suppressed. After a failed revolt, Ireland was forcefully incorporated into the United Kingdom in 1801. A new British nation was forged through the propagation of a dominant English culture. The symbols of the new Britain, the British flag, Union Jack, the national anthem, God Save Our Noble King, the English language were actively promoted, and the older nations survived only as subordinate partners in this union. Artists in the 18th and 19th centuries found a way out by personifying a nation. In other words, they represented a country as if it were a person. Okay, nations were then portrayed as female figures. The female form that was chosen to personify the nation did not stand for any particular woman in real life. Got it? Rather, it sought to give the abstract idea of the nation a concrete form. That is, the female figure became an allegory of the nation. Okay, you can recall that during the French Revolution, artists used the female allegory to portray ideas such as liberty, justice, and the republic. These ideas were represented through specific objects or symbols. You can remember that the attributes of liberty are the red cap or the broken chain, while justice is generally a blindfolded woman carrying a pair of weighing scales. Similarly, female allegories were invented by artists in the 19th century to represent the nation. In France, she was christened Mariana, a popular Christian name which underlined the idea of the people's nation. Her characteristics were drawn from those of liberty and the republic: the red cap, the tricolour, the cockade. The statues of Mariana were erected in public squares to remind the public of the national symbol of unity and to persuade them to identify with it. Mariana images were marked on coins and stamps. Like in Germany also, allegory of German nation become popular. In visual representation, Germania wears a crown of oak leaves as the German oak stands for heroism. Let us discuss about case study of Balkans. The Balkans was a region of geographical and ethnic variation comprising modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Slovenia, Serbia, Macedonia, whose inhabitants were broadly known as the Slavs. A large part of the Balkans was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, the spread of the ideas of Romantic nationalism in the Balkans, together with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, made this region very explosive. All through the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire had sought to strengthen itself through modernization and internal reforms, but with very little success. The Balkan states were jealous of each other and each hoped to gain more territory at the expense of others. One by one, states broke away from control of Ottoman Empire and declared independence. During this period, there was intense rivalry among the European powers over trade and colonies as well as naval and military might. These rivalries were very evident in the way the Balkan problem unfolded. Russia, Germany, England, Austro-Hungary was keen on countering the hold of other powers over the Balkans and extending its own control over the area with the use of military in a particular region. It led to the First World War. Nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1914. But meanwhile, many countries in the world which had been colonized by the European powers in the 18th century began to oppose imperial domination. People started opposing imperialism. The anti-imperial movement that developed everywhere were nationalist in the sense that they all struggled to form independent nation states and were inspired by a sense of collective national unity and all wanted nation state. Before we end up the session, let's take a short recap. So far we have discussed about formation of Germany, Italy, Ireland and Britain. Then visualizing the nation, case study about Balkans, nationalism and imperialism.